Rock duo Royal Blood got some online flack recently after a performance in Dundee, Scotland, during which they seemed to verbally attack the crowd for not liking them enough.
Well, I guess I should introduce ourselves, seeing as no one actually knows who we are. We're called Royal Blood, and this is rock music. Who likes rock music? 9 people, brilliant. Can you clap for us? Can you clap? You're busy. Can you clap? It's busy. Yes, even he's clapping. What does that say about you?
But were they within their right to be upset with the audience, or was this just a display of pure unprofessionalism? Hi, I'm Adam, welcome back to Music Mongoose. Royal Blood is made up of just 2 members, Mike Kerr and Ben Thatcher. They formed in 2011 in West Sussex and have had an incredibly successful career with their unique brand of heavy, bass-driven rock. Kerr providing a thick and aggressive foundation from his distorted bass guitar, and Thatcher complementing with powerful driving percussion. Their debut self-titled album was well received by critics, and it became the fastest selling British rock debut album in 3 years in the UK. They're particularly revered for their live shows, bringing a high-octane, energetic presence to the stage. In fact, they won Best Live Band at the NME Awards in 2014, and Best Live Act at the Q Awards a year later. So, what the f*** happened in Dundee? Why did they seem to be throwing their man-baby toys out of their man-baby prams? The performance took place at Radio 1's Big Weekend, an annual music festival celebrating the biggest and best names in current pop music. The 1975, Jonas Brothers, Lewis Capaldi, Rudimental, Anne-Marie and Zara Larsson were all on the lineup. You're probably already thinking, well, that's a very poppy lineup, how could Royal Blood ever fit in such a lineup? That's probably a mistake with the scheduling or something. Well, also on the lineup were the likes of Wet Leg, Cassiette, Inhaler and Nothing But Thieves, huge players in the current UK landscape of rock. Remember, in the 50s and early 60s, rock and pop were pretty much synonymous. The Rolling Stones, The Who, The Beatles. Only in the last 60 years has pop evolved into what we know it as today. So it's no surprise that rock bands often transcend these boundaries and appeal to a wider, all-encompassing audience. Royal Blood certainly fits into this category. Their music has widespread appeal, hence the slew of chart-topping albums and singles. So actually, they probably weren't really out of place at the festival. Mike Kerr was visually unhappy with the audience they were playing to. He alluded that the crowd didn't know what rock music was, and even resorted to clapping for drummer Ben because the audience weren't doing enough clapping themselves. In the lineup, the band was placed between Niall Horan and the day's headliner, Lewis Capaldi. To be fair, based on who they were sandwiched between, the audience was probably a lot more pop inclined. I can imagine a vast majority of people probably just stayed after Niall Horan, waiting for Lewis Capaldi's set to start, and putting up with Royal Blood in the meantime. The building blocks did seem in place for a disconnect between band and audience. You could say it was a recipe for disaster. And it's worth noting as well that Royal Blood were the last act to be announced for the festival. It's quite possible they were asked to fill in last minute for an act that didn't confirm. Would explain how the scheduling worked. Is all of this an excuse for belittling the audience though? Is that ever an okay thing to do? Especially where the main demographic is teenagers and young adults. A flood of tweets started to emerge shortly after the set appeared on BBC iPlayer to watch back. A lot of tweets suggest that Kerr and Thatcher are out of touch with their privilege. I mean, the fact Ben's surname is literally Thatcher doesn't really help, does it? But the band do seem to be aware of who they are. In 2020, in light of the Black Lives Matter protests, the band shared on Instagram this statement. The truth is, we are 2 white males adopting and basking in an entire genre of music that was created by black culture and black musicians. So with that, are they ever within their right to complain? In these moments of attacking the audience, it's almost as if all that self-awareness just goes out the window. Can you ever complain about your work, knowing the foundation and the privilege on which your success was built? I mean, that could be a whole other video and probably an entire dissertation, so for now let's just get back to the actual performance. This one tweet in particular from Tom is interesting. He mentions how Foo Fighters played the same festival scheduled before Taylor Swift, and went down a storm because Dave got them on side. In the year 2000, Daphne and Celeste, the peppiest, poppiest of pop duos, was scheduled to play Reading and Leeds Festival just before, wait for it, Rage Against the Machine. Maybe Royal Blood could take some inspiration from them. From the moment Daphne and Celeste's set started, they were met with pure hostility from the crowd. Incredibly offensive signs were held up, bottles were persistently thrown throughout, but the duo soldiered on and even embraced it, all the while displaying huge grins on their faces. What are your thoughts on this whole debacle? Let me know in the comments. And for the story of another disastrous set, check the video on screen for Oasis's worst gig ever. And I'll catch you next time on Music Mongoose.